Hello and welcome to today's webinar. It's on product agility and flexible monetization for industrial IoT solutions. My name is Jeremy Cowan. I'm editorial director and co-founder of IoT Now, and I'm delighted to be your moderator today. Thank you to everyone for joining us. At a time of growing interest in the industrial Internet of Things, we've got a really good discussion for you, brought to you with Flexera and backed up by independent analysis from Beecham Research. So the first thing to do is to introduce you to our speakers. Let's do that in the order that they will appear. They are Robin Duke-Woolley, CEO and analyst at Beecham Research. It's a pleasure to have you here, Robin.
Thanks very much, Jeremy. Great to be here.
And I'm delighted also to welcome Nicole Segura, who is Head of Global Product Marketing at Flexera. It's great to have you here, Nicole.
Thank you, Jeremy. Happy to be here. Thank you.
Well, today we're going to look at just how to monetize the industrial Internet of Things, or IoT. We'll be looking at your business model, what your product does and what it costs, and how to learn from customer usage data, and much more besides. Many of you already know the way our webinars work. This is being recorded, and so you'll be able to access it tomorrow at iot-now.com. As always, this is an interactive webinar, and later on I'll be putting your questions to our two panelists. So send me yours now. Just click on the questions button and type your question into the window that appears. I'll put as many of these to our speakers as time allows, and of course any that we don't get to will be passed to them to answer offline later. Some of Flexera's slides will also be available after the webinar. Finally, if you're having any technical issues with audio or with slides, you can always use the question window to get advice from our excellent tech support team. Okay, let's get started by hearing from Robin Duke-Woolley of Beecham Research, and afterwards Robin will hand over to Nicole. Robin, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jeremy. Yes. So my first slide is really just to understand where it's all coming from. So this is a chart that we've had for a little while, which talks about an unconnected product. The value for it derives directly from the product itself. And once it's connected, you then have a whole range of services that can also gain value and also derive customer service and customer relationships. So the opportunity to add value with service is really what it's all about. So the industrial IoT is all about moving from a product base to a product and service base, or just even a service base. And a survey that we did a little while ago shows that in the early days of M2M and now IoT, it was all about saving money initially, connecting devices, but now it's increasingly about making money. There's been a bit of a change in the way of looking at the Internet and looking at how the cost structures and revenue structures can be reoriented using the connectivity. And whereas in the early days operations tended to be in the depths of the organization, perhaps in the service department, now it's much more of a central activity. Revenue generation is much more mission critical than cost saving typically, because it's something that the whole company then starts to rely on. So it's becoming much more mission critical. It's becoming much more revenue orientated quite quickly now, and that's really the basis for this discussion today. Again, another survey that we did a short while ago showed just how important security is Now, it's not a surprise, I don't think, to anybody listening that security would be considered to be important, but I think it's just worth bearing in mind that whenever we plan for new IoT solutions, it's really important that security is built in from the ground up. I think that we'll be talking about that throughout this discussion as well. And just to emphasize that, security, you might think, is a simple thing. It might be that you think that once you have a patch, that you can then apply that and put it onto your whole IoT solution. And of course, it's not like that at all, because as this diagram shows, managing the threats in IoT, there are elements of the IoT solution at every level. So we have the network layer, the edge devices, the platforms, the applications, and so forth. And in the early days, when we were looking at just M2M, that sliver on the right-hand side that you can see was really the sum total of the interfaces that needed to be looked at. So basically between the different layers in the solution stack. But now that we're moving to IoT, you have a situation where you may have different segments from different data in different sources that needs to be brought together to provide an overall solution. And that means that you have interfaces between those as well. So, for example, if you have an application that includes some consumer data and also includes some perhaps healthcare data and transportation data, I'm thinking there perhaps of a smart city type application, you have the potential there for different levels of security, for different levels of information, and that makes the whole aspect of IoT security much more exciting, if you like, much more challenging overall. So this is just a basic outline of the things that we need to bear in mind. And now Nicole is going to take us through the detail of the subject for today. So over to you, Nicole.
Thanks a lot, Robin, and thanks everyone for joining the webinar today. And we'll use the next 20 to 30 minutes to talk a bit about product agility and monetization in IoT or the industrial IoT. And as Robin said quite rightly, we will also talk a bit about security and what we need to keep in mind when we are building and running IoT solutions in a connected world. So just before I start, just 2 sentences about Flexera, just to give you some background on why we are talking about these things. Flexera is the market leader for software monetization. We've done that for more than 20, I think approaching 30 years by now. And back in the days, we've been working with pure software companies, right, that at this point wanted to license and protect their software and ultimately make money from it. What we are seeing is that especially over the last, let's say, 8 to 10 years, we are working more and more with what we call intelligent device manufacturers or former hardware companies that are now moving towards the IoT, like Robin said, to an M2M approach, IoT approach, that are having more connected solutions, more software on their solutions, more data that they are generating. And at the end, companies in these areas, they are facing problems that are very similar to what software companies have seen many years back, right? So how do I protect my solutions? How do I license them? How do I monetize them and actually build a digital business model around my offering here? And then as more and more software is being used, we just acquired a company a year ago, a company by the name Palamida, which is an expert for software composition analysis, just because there's more and more, third-party software being used, open source software being used, especially within IoT. So we found that this is an area to look at and broaden our offering here. So that's actually why we are covering the space there today as well. But I think that's enough background about Flexera, so let's jump straight into it. So here are kind of the 4 areas that we are going to talk about today. And, the bottom right one is certainly the one that we are all interested in. So how do we drive more revenue, more recurring revenue from IoT solutions and digital offerings? That's what everyone is thinking about. But also we need to cover a couple of other things just to be ready for it at all, right? So we have to start by delivering a secure product. We have to manage devices, software, and customers, bring this data together to have a groundwork for monetization and digital business models. And then actually, monitor and analyze and realize the value of data. So with connected devices and connected software and ever bigger IoT offerings, more and more data is coming out of it, and more data is being thrown at us as users. So the question is, what do you do with it? And as a software supplier, what data do you actually need to run a successful business, software business, and digital business, and monetize it more effectively? So these points will be covered today. Like Jeremy said in the beginning, happy to answer questions in the end. So if you have any, just send them in the chat window. And we'll start with the first part here and talk about shipping or building a secure product, right? And as Robin just highlighted, there are uncountable areas in the field of security, and certainly we won't cover all of them, or we will be on this webinar for the next 10 or 20 hours, so we won't do that, but we'll cover at least the areas that Flexera can talk to. And that's actually what you can see quite here in this slide. It becomes very clear. So that's the use of open source software. So every research you look at, you will see that basically everyone, here it says 9 out of 10 IoT developers are using open source software, open source technology, right? And just think about the most well-known examples. Think about operating systems like Linux or Android, but also think about, packages that are being used, open source components that are being used that are making all our lives easier. As a supplier, you benefit a lot just because you get products to market faster. You can use, proven industry standards based on open source, and then you even you can use existing components to be faster in a go-to-market. So that's all great. But like every technology that we are using and adopting, it all depends on on how we manage it in the end, right? So there are two things that we need to look at when we use open source software in our IoT applications or offerings. So the first is, are you aware of open source license obligations, right? So do you know what license obligations you have to follow and what you've got to do there, right? So open source is free to use. It doesn't really cost you any money. But nevertheless, there's a license and you have to be in compliance with it, right? Some open source components really come with a permissive or public domain license, so there's actually nothing that you've got to do. You can just use it. But most open source components, think GPL licenses and others, they come with, what we call copyleft licenses. So there are some obligations you've got to follow. So you have to disclose what you're using, for example, or sometimes when you're building your own solution based on open source technology, you've got to give your solutions back to the community and disclose some of your proprietary code there as well. So that's all great. The point is you need to know what you've got to do and you need to follow these license obligations. And you need to check, of course, if there's an issue with, let's say, your IP protection, if there's something that you don't really want to distribute, right? So that's the first area that you want to look at. And then the second area that you want to look at are software vulnerabilities. And that is true not only for open source software. It goes for, your proprietary software, any other third-party components you are using. Software vulnerabilities are really a big topic and very often not managed as well as they should be. And I'm using an example here that is not an IoT example, but I think everyone on this call heard about it when Equifax had this massive data breach just a couple of months back, and it was, over 140 million people affected. Their data has been stolen. It was a big issue in the industry, certainly a big hit to Equifax and to their reputation, to their customers, and I think we all remember this case. And what was it built on? It happened just because of a software vulnerability in an open source component, right? There was an Apache Struts to a component. It had a vulnerability, it wasn't patched, and in the end it got exploited, and we all know what happened. And we are, Equifax was certainly a big example, but if you follow the news there, you see news related to software vulnerabilities that haven't been patched. basically every other day. And you see that very often in IoT as software solutions, and IoT solutions become more complex. A lot of third-party components are being used. So this needs to be managed. Otherwise, you have a big risk surface here that can become a threat to your company and to your customers. So the truth is that even if that is more and more software, or open source software is being used, the truth is that very many companies out there are not really aware of what they are using. And what you're seeing here is the data that we are capturing when we are doing audits based on our product, right? So we are working with customers that want to get a one-off insight into what they are using. That might, for example, be through due diligence activities or just because they want to get a first insight as a starting point. And we capture what the customer discloses, so what they think they have and what we actually find. And what you can see here is, the use of open source software is exponentially growing. So we are finding more and more. At the same time, the companies we are working with, they are not really aware of more, right? So this gap that you are seeing here between what companies are actually using and what they are aware of, that is the risk gap that you've got, if you like, because there might be vulnerabilities that you are not aware of. There might be license obligations that you are not aware of. These are the things that you need to look at in order to be able to ship a secure product and really manage what's in your code. So I think with that, I'll hand it back over to Jeremy for our first poll question here.
Yeah, thanks, Nicole. I'm amazed by that risk gap, but that's a conversation for later, maybe. Thanks. We, as I said at the beginning, we want to know what you think. And so we have a poll. We have two, in fact, and the first of them is happening now. All I would ask you to do is just click on answer 1, 2, 3, or 4, whichever is closest to your own experience. And in a minute, we'll see the results. Please remember, your replies are, of course, anonymous. And the question is, how is your company managing the use of open source? And is it answer 1, we have an open source review board that governs security and compliance processes? Is it answer 2, our engineering teams manage it? Is it answer 3, I don't know? Is it answer 4, we are not using open source software? So how is your company managing the use of open source? Let's see what results our audience have given us. Well, a very strong answer is we are not using open source software, but equally there are a lot saying perfectly fairly that they don't know. And a percentage, 14% of the respondents say that the engineering teams are managing it. But nobody gave the answer that they have an open source review board. Is that what you were expecting, Nicole?
Yeah, I mean, it depends a bit. I certainly don't know, what the day jobs are of everyone that's on the line here, and if you are, actively working with open source software or in legal and engineering or not. But I would say that this kind of reflects what we are seeing often. So an open source review board is something that we see with companies that really have professionalized their use of open source software. So basically what they do is they bring legal, security, and engineering experts together to really manage what they are using. But certainly, if you're just growing in this area, you're not at this stage. So it's not surprising. I think very often it starts with the engineering teams manage it. And they might manage it better or worse, right? That really depends from company to company. But I think, altogether, it reflects what we are seeing, yes.
Robin, do you have anything to add on that?
Well, I think it's reasonable, actually, particularly from what Nicole is saying, that there are a lot of people who don't know, and there are a lot of people who are not using open source software. I think the number of people that are using open source software in these sorts of projects is a minority rather than a majority. So we are at the early stages of this, and so I think to that extent that's reflected in these responses.
Okay. Well, it's time now to continue with the presentation. So, Nicole, back to you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Jeremy. So we just, did a quick deep dive, if you like, into open source software. But, thinking back to what Robin just said in the beginning, security is a much bigger and broader topic. So our general advice here is that if you develop IoT solutions and if you bring, more and more software and services-driven solutions to the market, you need to think security at every stage of the product lifecycle. And we just talked a bit about the develop lifecycle, right? So are you using open source components there? But then actually a lot more is happening with the software. And we won't go through this in all detail, but when you develop software, think about hacking from the start. So think about how you can protect your code, be tamper resistant, to use an industry term here. Then when you deliver and deploy your solution, think about how you control delivery. So basically how you make sure that, what you're shipping out there really just falls into the hands of paying customers and not into the hands of someone else. And then especially when we are talking IoT solutions, we are talking about embedded software on devices, right? So activation processes become quite important here. Some of you might be working in industries where gray market production is an issue. So you might have contract manufacturers that actually produce a bit more and sell it on the gray market. And certainly that's something that you don't want to see. So activations are actually a very helpful mechanism to prevent that. So, and to build a relationship to your customer. So when you're shipping a device with software on it, you can build an activation mechanism to really make sure, okay, this is a device, this is my device, this is my software on it, it gets activated, which also gives you a direct relationship to the customer. And we'll get to that in just a few minutes and talk about how important that is. And then obviously, as you're running your solutions out there in the field, you need to detect all kinds of threats and handle them, right? So someone might really be, someone might try to hack your software. Customers might accidentally overuse it. There might be vulnerabilities that you need to patch. There's a whole lot going on basically every day that you need to monitor and manage. So it's important for you as a supplier that you find, let's say, unusual usage patterns and then manage them accordingly. And how you manage them, that really depends on the industry you're working in, right? So when you're in a consumer-based industry, it's probably an idea to just say, okay, there's overviews or potential hacking going on, so I can just shut down a software or device. But in an industrial IoT scenario, you certainly wouldn't do that. You wouldn't shut down software or device that's on a production line or a medical device or whatever. So you need to find other ways to manage that and to get in touch with your customers. So that really depends on your industry, but long story short, you need to manage the threats that you are seeing out there every day, and you need to make sure that your solutions are shipped secure, but they also stay secure throughout their life cycle. And the central component to that is being able to update them. So basically sending software and firmware updates to software and to devices and to the right customers once again that should receive them. So we talked a bit about, managing devices, software, and customers and updates. So let's talk a bit more in detail about, what you've got to manage if you have an IoT solution or industrial IoT solution and how it all connects together, right? We are always talking about, let's say, this triangle between devices, software, and customers and actual usage, how we get this together, and we want to look into that in a bit more detail. So we as Flexera, we look at the world, starting with a monetization platform, so basically a central system that manages your software devices and customers, and what customers are entitled to use, and that helps you, run and operate your software business and analyze it there. The real world doesn't always look this way, but we'll talk about that in a second. So in a connected use case, IoT use case, that is what you see, right? You've got devices out there and they are connected back to your back office, which is, from our perspective, the more simple use case, because you've got an ongoing connection, which means you can push out updates, you can receive data back from devices and analyze usage. But very often when we are talking about industrial IoT, you're talking about partially connected or disconnected devices. So in a manufacturing environment, in a smart factory environment, devices won't always be connected to the internet. Same is true for medical and for other industries. So even if devices are not connected all the time, if we are talking about the intranet of things, it's equally important for you as a supplier to be able to update them, to find out what's going on there and to manage your customer compliance. So even if this connection doesn't always exist, it's still important to manage the same use cases, and actually that's what we are doing here. And then as you're growing into new monetization and business models, you will manage more and more, subscribers or people that are using your software. It could be, HMI software that you are delivering with your devices. It could be SaaS or mobile applications that you are delivering for data analytics, monitoring, remote control. And there, once again, you've got connected and disconnected use cases that you've got to manage. And the big point here that the recommendation that we've got for our customers and companies that we are working with is stop operating products in silos. And that's what I alluded to just a minute ago when I said the real world doesn't always look this way. So here you kind of got a central monetization platform, and everything is connected to it, right? And that is what we recommend. In real life, very often it's not as connected. So you see different product lines within one company, different software product lines, and they are all managed, but they are, there are multiple systems of records for customer data. There are different licensing technologies being used. And if someone from a higher position in the company really looks at the software business and says, okay, how many software products do we have to have? How many customers are using which products, and what's going on there as a whole? It's very often pretty difficult to answer these questions just because, products are being run in silos. And at some point that gets hard to manage, difficult to manage. And then also from a security perspective, that's probably not what you want, because it's really hard to get a holistic overview of what you've got out there and what you need to manage. So what is it that you need to manage, right? So you might think, okay, what Nicole is telling us here is I've got customers, I've got devices. The devices have got some software on it, and I need to bring that together. And that's the easy view, right? But let's look a bit more into detail on what data we've got out there and what you need to bring together. So first of all, you've got software on devices, so it's a certain version that you got on a certain version of a hardware device, and then there's a support state related to that, right? So that is something that you need to document. And then we talked about at the beginning, is there open source software? Are there vulnerabilities that you need to manage? And then what is it that the customer has actually purchased? So what are the customer use rights or entitlements? What is that? What are the rights to use for this customer? What features, for example, has this customer purchased? And then are there updates available for this customer? Or is this customer maybe not on maintenance anymore? So maybe, this person is not eligible to receive updates, right? And then another point is what is the actual usage? And this is a whole different data point, right? There's one data about what your customer can technically use based on their contract. And then there's the other data about what your customers are actually using. And that is a really important insight as you grow into more customer-centric business models. And we'll look at that in just a minute. And then lastly, in IoT, it's really important to mention this last point. It's, let's say, another layer of complexity here when you are selling through channel and ecosystems and distributors, or if you're an OEM in a longer supply chain, you might not always be working directly with your customers. And we talked about that in the beginning when we mentioned activations. So even then, even if you're not in a direct sales model, it's really important for you to have this customer connection. So even if you're selling through channel partners, it's important that you know which customer is using what. So that is the data that we've got to manage. And if you bring all this together, and if you manage your software operations, let's say in a professional way, you actually benefit. And one good example is what actually was in the title of this webinar, is product agility. So it enables you to differentiate product through software and not through hardware. So if you think then 10 years back, maybe in your business, you developed 3 different devices for 3 different purposes, right? So different functionality really required a different hardware device. Today, we see more and more companies moving to, let's say, a single base product in terms of hardware, and then they use software to change capacity, to change functionality, to add more storage or add online monitoring functionality, or really, change what this device does. which is a great development out of two reasons. First reason is that you really save money in terms of hardware production, just because you only produce one model and not three or four or five or whatever. And then the second point is you can get a lot more customer-centric, just because if the customer wants something different, wants more functionality, wants less functionality, wants to use a certain premium feature, you will be able to switch features on and off electronically, automatically, basically on the push of a button on demand. You can change device functionality, and that's a great win that we've got with connected solutions and IoT solutions. We can change devices, what they are doing in an electronic way, and we don't have to send service people out there anymore to do that. And then, by doing that, we get a lot more customer-centric, because one size fits all, as we've got it here, that doesn't work anymore. Customers want to change really quickly what they're using, and at the same time, the same is true for monetization, which is the core of today's webinar. What we are seeing is that customers are willing and able to pay for what they want, but the acceptance to pay for something that they didn't really need is declining, right? So IoT products and I think any digital product that is being used out there needs to be really tailored to what the customer wants, and being able to switch features and on and off electronically, that's basically what gets you there. So let's talk a bit about the data that you've got and what you need to monitor and analyze in order to be able to monetize, right? So we mentioned the data before, so you need to bring together device software and customer data, and then what you get back in connected solutions is two types of data, if you like. So first of all, you're getting really device data, so it's instrumentation data, it's data that you're getting back from sensors, and then it's usage data. It's like, what is the customer using? How much is being used? And what is being used? What feature is being used, right? So these are things that basically in the past you've been more or less left in the dark on these things. You didn't really know what was going on there. And now in connected use cases and IoT solutions, you've got a lot more insight into what's going on. And that actually sets you up for digital success and to make sure that you've got a good digital business model. So you know which devices are out there and you know which software they are running. So that's kind of the basis. And by that you fulfill documentation requirements. When you're working in regulated industries, you make sure that you can really document what's going on out there. Then you can link customers to what they're actually using, which is important for monetization, because it's really important what version or what feature a customer is using, especially if you want to monetize that way. At the same time, you can go a lot smarter about services, because you can actually look up, okay, what is this customer using, and it's easier for you to help them. And you can measure compliance, of course, and make sure if they're using what they paid for or if they're actually using more. And then based on the device data that you're getting back, you can get ready for, let's say, predictive and preventive maintenance models, looking at battery hours to exchange them proactively is maybe the simplest examples, and there's a lot more that you can do proactively when you're monitoring device data and when you know what's going on with your devices in the field. And then the usage data of customers is, from our perspective, the most important point, because that is actually the base for future development and billing. And let me say, one more sentence about that. Future development is, you will always run into the question, what do we do next? What features do we develop? What's most important? What is it our customers want? And then in the past, very often, this might have been based on guesswork, on conversations that you had with single customers that you're working with. Today, with a software monetization platform, you can really look into what's going on based on a feature level, find out what is it that my customers are using. So is this killer feature the killer feature that the product manager just came up with, or is the killer feature actually something else? So what are your products being used for, and what are the high value features to your customers? By now you get data points and you can find out what's going on out there, which means that if you make decisions about future development and where you want to invest, you can rely on really valuable data. And then from a billing perspective, if you really want to monetize usage-based, having usage is the basis for everything. And even if you don't want to monetize usage-based, it's important to track usage for compliance, and also to find out if there are any patterns that are unusual, so that you can manage them proactively. So there's a lot that you can get out of it. Certainly it's a business transformation, right? You want to benefit, and now we get into the monetization part, into monetization models. And I think what we've heard so far shows that it's a bit of a business transformation. You need to get ready for the security requirements. You need to build up solid software operations to manage it all, and a new customer relationship is required. And then, in terms of monetization, like Robin said in the beginning, we've got operational efficiency, which is more about saving money, but we get more and more into new business models, generating revenue and from software and data-driven services, right? So when we talk about these business models and how companies monetize today, subscription is certainly something that is, I would say, the number one, right? So everyone's thinking about subscription, right? And what you're seeing here is IDC's worldwide software revenue, which really captures all revenue, and you are seeing we are kind of at a point where it's shifting from the more traditional license and maintenance business to a subscription business. And in just a few years, subscription will have outrun the more traditional digital business model. And I think that's an important development. And you might think of subscription as something that is being used in the software world, but I can tell you that device manufacturers, most of the device manufacturers we are talking about, they are thinking about subscription, right? We know that from the automotive industry that automotive suppliers are getting ready to not sell cars anymore, but actually, sell mobility and miles driven. We've been talking to an industrial producer of industrial cleaning machines that thought about, stopping selling machines, but charging customers for square meters cleaned. So subscription models are really coming up everywhere. And when you think about your IoT solution and how you can monetize, I mean, so far we've been talking about monetizing an IoT solution, but let's go one level deeper and say what is an IoT solution and what can you actually monetize? And there we've got devices, we've got gateway certainty, we've got different types of software or software in different deployment models, and then ultimately we've got the data that is being used. And the value is shifting more and more to this blue area here, where you, software, embedded software, on-premises software, and SaaS cloud software. So that is basically where you are investing the most when you are developing new solutions, and that is where you ultimately want to get something in return. So it's more and more important to monetize the value of software. In order to do that, it's important to align packaging and pricing with customer value, and we look at what your customers want and what they get out of it. With that, you move to recurring revenue. We talked about subscription. It's all about moving to recurring revenue models and in the end becoming more agile, and that ties back to activating and deactivating features on devices, and we talked about that already, which gives you a chance to be a lot more agile, right? So in the end, you want to offer the right product at the right price point. And we see on the left side here that some suppliers are really thinking about shifting business models completely and shifting from a more hardware-based sale to an as-a service sale, where, as I just said, don't really sell a device anymore, but you sell a service that is probably built off a device, that is run by software and the data that you are getting out of it. So it's a whole new business model that certainly requires a lot of internal changes to get ready for that. But even if you don't go the full way to moving to an as-a-service model, there's a lot that you can do. So building right-sized offerings by differentiating through software. So coming up with a light-based product and then add more functionality in a standard or professional solution. That's something that many manufacturers are looking at. And then, selling features and add-ons is really a central point, because you have high-quality features right now that you want to monetize, but then also that sets you up for success in the future, because as you bring new solutions or new features to market, you will actually be able to monetize them on top of your, let's say, standard offering. So I think that's a quick overview on monetization and what you can do here. And I think with that, I'll hand it back over to Jeremy for our next poll.
That's great. Thank you very much, Nicole. Let's go to the second poll. And as you'll see, the question is, what describes your monetization approach best? Remember, this is totally anonymous. Nobody can see who's answered what. It'd be very interesting to know which answer comes out top. Answer one, is it still mainly hardware, device-based software is only an enabler? Do you think that we have some software offerings that are monetized separately? Do you say that we monetize premium features on top of base products? Are you at the stage now where you're moving to as a service based on bundled offerings? Or are you still researching your approach? No shame in that, of course. So what describes your monetization approach best? Still mainly hardware, device-based software is only an enabler. We have some software offerings that are monetized separately. We monetize premium features, and these are on top of base products. Or we're moving to as a service based on bundled offerings. Or finally, we're still researching our approach. Let's see what our delegates have answered. I don't have a live view of the answers at the moment, and if that persists, then what we'll do is we'll send round the results to the individual delegates later. Sorry, we seem to have a technical glitch there, so bear with us. If that doesn't appear shortly, then I think what we'll have to do is send round the results to individual delegates. My apologies for that. That's never happened before. But what we'll do now is just go back to Nicole for the last few comments of hers. So, Nicole, if I may, it's back to you.
Thank you, Jeremy. And what a shame. I would have loved to see the results here, but maybe we can discuss in our Q&A and we get some insights on what people on the line here are actually doing and what they are approaching with their monetization strategies. I think as we talk about new monetization models, and we talked about, so far we talked about subscription, pay-per-use came up, monetizing features came up. All of that boils down to one really central point that becomes important for you as a supplier. And this point is keeping your customers front and center and really know what they are using. Even in a complex IoT world, and you mentioned before that you might not be selling directly when you're an OEM provider, but it's really important to kind of guide customers through their whole life cycle, from provisioning to onboarding to really making sure they get success with what they are using until, especially when we are talking subscription, this renewal comes up, and then hopefully, certainly the contract gets renewed and they continue to use your solutions, or you can even upsell to them. So being customer-centric will be a main differentiator as we move forward with IoT solutions and with SaaS applications. On top of that, you really need to focus on what your customers want, what they are actually using, and you need to find out if they are getting value. That's really just an insight into our product here, and that's just one of many analyses that we've got there. But basically what we are doing here, and it's not as easy to see, but we are providing you with dashboards that are showing you, okay, what's account health? So are customers getting value? And we base these analyses on what these customers have purchased, what are they consuming, so what their consumption is, and then we also analyze when their renewal is due, and we give you an overview on your customer. And the important point here is we enable you to see that for customers on all your products. So many companies that we are talking to, and that brings us back to what we talked about in the beginning about operating products in silos. Many manufacturers are telling us, of course we know what customers are doing for a certain product line or for a certain product, but when you ask what customers are doing, with all their software offerings, it's not as easy to answer, right? But it's really important for you as a business decision maker or as a business leader to know which products are customer using and are they getting value. So if they're using products more and more, that's great. Maybe they even need more or a bigger package, right? And if they're using less and less, there are two options. So you could either not know and then just wait until this renewal and then maybe just hear from this customer, we are not using it anymore, so we'll stop it here. or you can act proactively and get in touch and see if you can support customers to get them, back to generating value again with your product. So I think that really becomes a central point as we move more into connected solutions and IoT solutions to really find out not only, how many, units, devices we've sold or pushed out to the field, but actually how many, what is really being used and if customers getting value. And you need to be able to measure that and have some, real world data around that, or you are missing out on an important point of insight here. So another, last analysis slide for Gartner here. They are saying that by 2022, the failure to put in place a license and entitlement management system, and that's actually a software monetization system, it's just another word for the same thing, will result in a 30% loss of potential revenue generated from software. So what Gartner is saying here is that device manufacturers really need to get ready for software monetization models, or they might be missing out on a lot of revenue that could be generated from software, or also in a negative case, you could be losing revenue just because people are using your products that are not actually entitled to do so. There's many, let's say, sources to this, potential loss of revenue. But the point is that everyone recommends by now it's important to bring in a software monetization platform and manage licenses and entitlement management. Licenses and entitlements in a central place. Sorry for that. So what does it look like? We talked about customers and products and who's using what in this webinar. And I don't want to go into all detail here, but I think it's important to give you a systems view and to show you what is what. So what you see in the central here, that's a software monetization system. In our case, the name of our platform here is Flexnet Operations. So here you bring all this data together. So products, the software products that you've got on different deployment models, customers, entitlements, usage, and renewals. And then, this basically enables you to do all the cool things that we talked about, enables new business models, automate subscription management, and drive customer growth. So that's kind of the central platform. And then we connect to all software applications out there, no matter what deployment models. Could be SaaS applications, on-premises application platforms, and then, of course, embedded software and devices. And we push updates out to these software endpoints. At the same time, we are getting usage data back and analytics back from these endpoints. So that's basically what a software monetization solution does, in short. And now you might be thinking, but I've got my customer data somewhere, and I've got my hardware product data somewhere. And of course, we don't ask you to do that twice. So on the other hand, we integrate with the systems of record there, with ERP systems, CRM systems. If you're working in a consumer space, a billing system to get invoices out to customers. So, these are typical integration points to make sure that, you've got a central record of all this data and you bring it all together in the back end in the end. So what you get out of it, if you go down this path to professional software monetization, is that, you can implement licensing to really protect your IP and make sure that only your paying customers use your IoT solutions here. You manage what customers are entitled to use and what they're actually using. So you're getting customer insight, and we talked about that just a second ago. You will be able to push out software and firmware updates to not only mitigate vulnerabilities, but also to deliver new functionality to your customers, to drive new value. And you will, get product insight and analytics. And with that, that's my last slide here. It's always important to leave people with something to walk away with, and I hope you don't walk away straight away because we have a Q&A session. But a couple of key points here. So first of all, talking to producers, manufacturers, we see that many are still giving their software away for free. It's used as an enabler for hardware, but not monetized separately. I think on the long run, that is something that you should review and stop, because software has a value. You're probably investing a lot of money in your software product, so it's important for you to monetize. Then deliver a secure product. I think that's pretty clear, but keep it top of mind and make sure that you review your processes there. Offer the right product at the right price point, so get more individual with pricing and with your offerings to stay really close to what your customers want. Profit from subscriptions and recurring revenue. So basically all of that gives you the chance to move away from a one-and-done hardware sale to a more recurring, ongoing revenue that grows your business, right? So that is something that you can profit from. And then the last point sounds a bit stupid, but it's actually pretty true. Act like a software company, just because many of the things that we've seen today are concepts that you know from the software world. So by now it's important to implement the same concepts or similar concepts in a more device-based IoT world. And I think with that, I'll hand it back over to Jeremy for our Q&A session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nicole. Well, we proved it's live earlier by unfortunately being unable to bring you the poll question. I'm going to try one thing and just see if they're able to come up now. No, they're not appearing. So that's a shame. We'll try and we know that there are results coming through, but we'll try and get those results over to you individually. And thank you very much, Nicole, and thank you, Robin. Now
it seems like here they are.
It seems
right?
they've just appeared.
We see them.
Oh, they have just appeared. Our technical team in the background have brought them up. Now let's see if they can bring them up again. No, I'm not seeing them.
Yeah.
There we are.
We are seeing them.
Are you all seeing them? I hope you are. The
We certainly are.
results seem now to be that the highest response was we are still researching our approach. And as we said before, that there's every sense in that. There's an equal number responding saying that their monetization approach is best described as still mainly hardware device-based. Software is only an enabler, and an equal number say we have some software offerings that are monetized separately. Nobody is at the moment describing themselves as monetizing premium features on top of base products, and 12.5% are moving to as a service based on bundled offerings, which I find very encouraging. Nicole, is that in line with your expectations?
Yeah, it certainly is, right? So what we are seeing, and maybe we get to that through the Q&A session, is that, a lot of research is being done, and then very often the first step is being made as a small step, maybe for just one product line, on new offerings. So that's certainly in line with what we are seeing. It's also not new that, it's still being researched. I think it's, as we mentioned, it's a big transformation, it's a big change, and it's actually not just changing a pricing or monetization models. If your, let's say, company is not ready for it, that will be a problem, and there's sales processes related to it, there's financial processes related to it. When you move to subscription, you're basically changing your whole revenue model, which will put you under pressure. So certainly a lot of companies doing a lot of research out there and in order to get ready to make the right decision. So I think that's not surprising. Also, the first point, still using software as an enabler, not really monetizing it separately. That's true for many. And then, or to start with some software offerings that are monetized separately. So I think by and large, that's what we are seeing out there. Yes, I would have expected a few that are already monetizing premium features. But yeah, I think we're definitely seeing that in the field. I think it depends on who you talk to, right?
Yeah,
I don't know, Robin,
maybe a different audience on a different day would have brought some of that up. Robin, is there anything you'd want to comment on?
Well, I think I'd agree almost entirely with what Nicole is saying, actually. It's relatively early days, and therefore you would expect the first two to be the highest. Monetizing premium features is a little bit more sophisticated, so you need to be fairly clear about what those premium features are and how you charge for them. So that's not something that you jump into straight away. But I think that people are moving into as a service. I think that some people are moving into as a service actually from the get-go. So I think that there are different issues there for why people are at different stages in that. So I think it's interesting, but it's certainly not unexpected, those types of results.
No. Thank you both. We've got a lot of questions to get through and a limited amount of time. So let's press on. Nicole, there's a question here for you. Questioner says, our embedded software development teams are growing, but we see little customer acceptance to pay for the value delivered through embedded software. What do you recommend?
Yeah, I think that really depends on your business, but as you just said, that's not new and that's happening to many. So I think depending on your industry, you've got many or a couple of ways to approach this, right? So monetizing features, by the way, could be one point. So if you monetize, if you enable certain features through software and activate them separately, you have a more direct connection between what your embedded software actually does and what the customer is seeing as a value. I think the biggest problem with embedded software is that it's kind of intangible. Customers can't really see it. It doesn't come with a nice graphical user interface. So that makes it a bit harder. But if you use embedded software to enable certain features on a device that customers can purchase extra on top of it, that might be a first approach to get there. Depending on what markets you are in, what we have seen as well is that even if you don't monetize your embedded software separately, it might help you keeping up your price, especially when you are facing a lot of competition from, let's say, manufacturers that are more or less copying your product. Then embedded software might be your competitive differentiator that enables you to keep your price high just because you're delivering better value there. So I think, these are things that we are seeing, or what we just discussed in the webinar, bundling it to come up with really new offerings that are based on software and devices together that makes it a bit easier to move to different packages here.
Yeah, there's another one here for you, Nicole. This is something that I think you've touched on, but maybe you would be able to go into a little more detail. The questioner says there's a lot of talk about consumption-based monetization models. Do you see that being put in practice?
That's an interesting question that we are getting pretty often. So everyone talks about it. I think it's rarely that we are seeing pure consumption-based models, especially in the industrial, more B2B field, right? And that is a reason. So just like Jeremy said, Robin said, it's really hard to find this meter and to know what data you base this consumption, what is consumption, right? So and how do you price it? It's really hard to find that number and this meter. And then at the same time, when you're working with enterprise customers, they've got to budget. So if you're pure consumption based, prices can go up and down quite a bit, which means that it might be somewhat unpredictable for your enterprise customers that are using your solution. So what we are seeing more often are hybrid models. So you've got a base price as a subscription, for example, and then if you purchase extra services or use more storage or whatever on top of that, then you pay that on consumption base. What we are seeing very rarely are pure consumption models, just for the fact that I just brought up.
Yeah. Question for both of you, but I'm going to put this one to Robin first. A few years ago, security was still quite a low priority for some industrial IoT deployments. Is security now designed into all applications from the planning stage? I think that the question wants to know, do you still see some high-risk industrial IoT deployments, really?
Well, industrial IoT is something that has moved quite a long way over the last few years. It's fair to say, I think, that a lot of the processes that were online, though 5 or 6 years ago, are still online. So it's not a case in some of these of planning new security in. There is a certain amount of retrospective, which is much more expensive than planning it in from the get-go. So I think that when it comes to new deployments, there is a move much more towards planning it in at the start, because it's cheaper to do that, and also it's much more flexible. So it can be more easily cater for changes, for example, and it's usually more scalable. But nevertheless, in the industrial processes environment, we have an awful lot of kit out there that's actually been in factories for a long time, for example, 25, 30 years, and it's not all going to get scrapped. So there is a certain amount of upgrade required as well. So there's always going to be some risk, and that's going to persist for some time, and it's a question really of risk management rather than risk taking all the risk out completely.
Yeah, that brings me on to something that I wanted to ask Nicole based on one of the slides that you had, Nicole. In one of the earlier slides, you said that the risk gap is growing each year, and that was between what was understood and what was declared by the customers and what you found in audit. Could you just explain why that is, and is that just a lack of awareness of the use of open source?
So, yeah, I think maybe it is, right? So what we are seeing is, and that's not unusual, right? So as Robin said, open source software and technology is not really new, but it's, just in the past couple of years, it's being used more and more, especially in, let's say, more innovative technologies like IoT and others. So I think what we are seeing is that more and more being used as more and more becomes available. But then at the same time, it's still a relatively young topic. So companies don't really have the measures yet and the systems yet to really control what they are using. And maybe they haven't really seen this risk yet. So very often, like Robin said, it's risk management. So maybe you still got other security issues to tackle. So very often, you turn to these things when something happens, which certainly is not best practice, but I think it's reality. So I think very often people maybe haven't seen the risk yet. And as we see more and more cases like the ones that I just mentioned, I think people will change the way they think about that.
Yeah, I'd agree totally.
Well, we've had a lot of questions. There are more that I'm afraid we've run out of time for and won't be able to get to. We're now just over the hour, so I'm going to have to say we'll take any further questions directly to our speakers and send them out to the individual questioners in response to the event. Many thanks for your questions. Really, just to wrap up, I've got to say that the aim of the webinar has been to try and understand a bit more how to monetize the industrial IoT, and clearly in this panel discussion we've heard about some of those challenges. As I say, sadly, that is all we have time for. I would ask you to bookmark our website at iot-now.com. You'll find the latest news there. You'll find blogs, you'll find events and videos, and from tomorrow you'll also find a stream of this webinar from the site. It just remains for me to say a really big thank you to our speakers. They are, of course, Robin Duke-Woolley of Beecham Research. Thank you very much, Robin.
Thank you, Jeremy. Great to be here.
And, of course, to Nicole Segura of Flexera. Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Most of all, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for joining us. Do keep safe, and we really do appreciate the time that you've spent with us. From everyone here at IoT Now, enjoy the rest of your day. Bye for now.